Okay, so I'm a little bit worried because I have a really sore throat right now, and today is the day when I film the video where I talk for over an hour, so great timing really. It's okay, I've got like a gallon of iron brew to get me through this. So welcome back to my channel, my name is Katie. Today I'm finally going to be filming my August/September updated makeup review. I meant to film this like a month ago, but life has just gotten in the way. People getting fired, people getting COVID at work, therefore me having to do all the bloody hours that I don't want to do and therefore not having a lot of free time. And then obviously it's been the holidays as well, so I have been trying to do some socialising with friends and family. I feel like you gotta kind of do that around Christmas and New Year, haven't you? Today we're going to be talking about all of the makeup products I tried in August and September. So this was from, I can't remember, can I? Okay, so I had an August full face of first impressions video, I had a Juvia's Place video, a September's full face of first impressions, and testing Rude Cosmetics, and then I also did a one brand collection video, so there are a couple of collection bits as well. So I guess technically 5 videos in total that's from. 4/5. So yeah, all of the products from those videos I have been using for probably like 3 or 4 months now, and I finally have some more things to say about them, so let's get started. We're going to start with primer. There was only one primer I tried. This is a collection product. This is the Primed and Ready Anti-Fatigue Illuminating Primer. It is so grubby. Literally all my makeup, it just gets grubby so fast. Honestly, I don't feel like this does anything. I've used this many times and it doesn't do anything wrong, it doesn't do anything offensive. It feels quite nice to put on, it feels quite moisturising, but I do not really notice any illumination. I just don't really notice any effect to it. It just kind of, I just don't really see the point of it. I don't feel like it does a lot, but then at the same time, does it do anything wrong? It doesn't interfere with like my base products or anything like that, but do I think it like improves my base products? No. Honestly, this is just a bit bleh to me. Like I'm probably going to declutter it because I just don't feel like it does enough. For me, with an illuminating primer, I want to actually be able to sort of see the illumination on my face. And like, honestly, I just don't feel like I see anything with this for me personally. So yeah, this is meh, but it is super cheap. So, but honestly, I feel like there are other cheap primers that you actually can see illumination on your skin with. Okay, so next we're going to move on to foundations. There was 4 foundations in total that we tried. So I've got the Juvia's Place I Am Magic Velvety Matte Foundation. I've got the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Luminous Matte Foundation. I've got the Maybelline Superstay Active Wear Foundation, and I've also got the Rude Cosmetics Double Trouble Foundation plus Concealer. I have filmed wear tests for all 4 of these foundations, so I will be inserting those clips throughout. And I did use like the same powder, the same concealer, same setting spray, and like all of the tests so that it was fair. And I definitely got like an array of different results of all of these foundations. I'm going to start with the Juvia's Place one just because this is the one that I have got on my face today. I just remembered I actually did take some notes. Sometimes I'm competent. What have I wrote here? I put quite thick and heavy, coverage pretty good, wear was pretty good, not as good as Maybelline. Wow, that's very helpful notes. Yes, so this foundation is more of a matte finish, I would say. It has a really like thick sort of moussey kind of consistency, but it does have really good coverage. Like the coverage is like, with building, it's pretty much full coverage, so the coverage is really good with this one, but it's heavy, it's thick. I feel like there are other foundations that give similar coverage but don't quite have that like sort of thick cakey kind of consistency that this one has, so that kind of puts me off loving it, but I do like it. As you can see, it looks nice, and I mean I like coverage, but I can see a lot of people not getting along with this because this is a heavy foundation. Wear of this was pretty good, not perfect. See, out of all of these foundations, the Maybelline one wore the best. And I probably would put this one on second place, actually. It's not as good as the Maybelline one, because that one wears really well. Spoiler alert for when I talk about that. I'll probably just talk about that next, actually. Wears well. It's not perfect wear, but it's pretty good wear. It does hold up pretty decently. In fact, let me just insert that wear test for you now. Excuse the crazy eye makeup that is obviously smudged, because it's been on all day. Okay, so this wear test is for the Juvia's Place foundation. I've had this one on for 7 hours, just like the others. And just looking at it now, I think it has held up pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Maybelline one, but I would say it's probably better than the Huda one. It's kind of like in the middle of those two, I would say. Looking at their forehead, like a tiny bit shiny, but not really that much. A little bit of settling in those little lines between my brows. A tiny bit textured, but not too much. The product really hasn't broken down very much at all. I feel like overall it looks pretty good up there. Maybe a little bit bumpy, but not that much bumpy. These parts of my face look pretty cool. A little bit of oil around my nose. That seems to be a common thing that happens. It doesn't really bother me that much. I feel like there's a tiny bit of breakage and a little bit of texture on the chin. It's not quite as good as like the Maybelline one looked for the same amount of time. But the chin doesn't look too bad. The product hasn't like broken down really badly. It's just like a tiny bit like in the centre. Pretty good overall, I would say. I feel like overall this has worn well. Not quite as good as the Maybelline one, just because it is a little bit of texture, tiny bit of breakage, but overall I feel like it has held up pretty well for 7 hours. I definitely think that this is a good wearing foundation. I wouldn't put it in like the great category. Like I feel like the Maybelline one is just really good. Like I feel like that's the standard for like wear, and this one is pretty close to that, but just not quite on the level. But yeah, overall I do think this is a like pretty long wearing foundation. It's just not the most long wearing one I've ever found, but it's done a decent job. It's just like a little bit of dots on my chin really, that's all. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the wear of the Juvia's Place one. I forgot to mention this is also in the shade Marisol, which I believe is the lightest shade, and probably could have gotten one below that actually, because this is a bit too pale for me. As I said, I have got it on today, and I'm definitely like, my face is definitely paler than my neck today. It doesn't help that I'm also using like a white translucent powder, which obviously made that worse. That's the thing though, I'm wearing it today, and like it's a good foundation, but it is just sort of one of those kind of like cake face foundations. But there are certain days where like I don't mind being a bit of a cake face, you know. So if you're looking for something that's like heavy duty coverage and lasts pretty well, I do think it is a good foundation. But if you're the type of person where you kind of want something to be a bit more lightweight on the skin, then you probably wouldn't like this, because it's thick. And like I said, I do feel like there are other foundations. For example, the Huda one that I'm going to talk about shortly, this one also has really good coverage, but I don't feel like it has that same sort of thickness and heaviness as this one does. So I definitely think I would keep this in my collection, and I definitely would use it on occasion. Like I'm not going to declutter it or anything, but I probably wouldn't buy it again. My thoughts on this are good foundation, but not a great foundation. Like it's good, it's not great. I will talk about the Maybelline one. As I said, this is definitely the best wearing out of the four. So this is the active wear, which I believe they have actually... See, I didn't know this was a separate foundation to the original Superstay or not, but I'm pretty sure last time I looked on Superdrug, I couldn't see the original Superstay anymore. So I think that they have actually replaced it with this. Fair enough for me, because honestly, I feel like it performs exactly the same as the original. Like, I honestly can barely notice a difference. So in my notes, I have written very high coverage, smooth, matte looking, not dry though, slightly heavier than the Huda one, but not by much. Wear was really good. My notes are just so insightful. Yeah, this is one of those foundations that has got really good coverage. Like I said, it is a little bit on the heavy side, but not as much as like that Juvia's Place one that I mentioned. I feel like this one is sort of in the middle of the Huda and the Juvia's Place in terms of like being quite thick and heavy. Like it's sort of in the middle. It could be a bit more lightweight, but it's not too bad. Yeah, coverage is great. It looks quite smooth. It looks quite matte, which is what I personally like. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't look drying at all though. And like I said, it wears really good. I'm going to put that wear test in for you now. Okay, so the next wear test is the Maybelline Superstay Active Wear Foundation. I've had this on today. I've had it on for 7 hours, so just half an hour more than the last wear test we do. I'm going to try and do the rest of these for about 7 hours. This one has definitely worn considerably better than the Huda Beauty one, which makes me think that like the powder or like concealers or anything like that wasn't really like causing any interference with the wear. It was just the foundation, because obviously I've used the exact same concealers, the exact same powders, same setting spray and everything today, and I've obviously got like a different result, so I know that it is the foundation and not any other products that I'm using. I expected this to be pretty long wearing, just because the original Maybelline Superstay, which I believe this has replaced it now, that originally was one of my like best wearing foundations. I always really loved how well the original wore, so I kind of expected that this one would also wear really well, and I have to say, after 7 hours, it looks pretty damn good. What I'm noticing especially is that my like cheeks, like I feel like my cheeks always like these parts of my face always tend to wear well, but like I feel like they just look so smooth, like more so than they usually do, you know. In terms of oil, I've got like a tiny bit of oil around my nose, but barely any. I feel like this foundation is pretty good when it comes to oil control because it is obviously a matte foundation, but literally I can just see like a tiny bit of oil around my nose and maybe like a tiny bit on my forehead, but really oil control is really good with this, I'd say. My face overall just still looks really like smooth. None of the product is really broken down. So if we get like closer, so I'll start off my forehead. I still feel like it looks pretty smooth up there. There's not really any breakage of the product. The only thing that I will say is it has settled in my little forehead, my little lines between my brows. This pretty much happens with almost every foundation, but it has done it a bit. It's not the worst in terms of that. Like, I've had foundations that have settled into those lines way worse, but it has done it a little bit. But overall, I feel like the forehead looks really good. There's literally like barely any breakage. And if we go down to the chin, I feel like it's pretty much the same. It still looks pretty good. Maybe like a few tiny little dots that weren't there earlier, but really there's not really any breakage of the product. It looks good. I just feel like it looks barely different to how it looked when I first put it on 7 hours ago. Like, honestly, it really doesn't look much different other than maybe like a few tiny little more dots on my face and the tiny bit of oil around my nose. Other than that, I feel like, does it look different? Not really. Overall press of how like smooth everything looks and how it just looks like a kind of a freshly applied foundation, you know. If anything, it probably looks better than when I first put it on because obviously my skin's had time for the products to sort of settle down, so everything looks like a little bit less cakey and stuff. So if anything, I feel like it probably looks better now than when it did at the start. Overall, this is a really solid foundation, but to be honest, I felt the same way about the original one. And honestly, this is kind of just like buying a top-up of the original one for me. It's weird because I felt like I saw a lot of people review this and say things like, I don't like this as much as the original, but to me, I feel like it's exactly the same. I'm thinking like, have you actually used it recently? Because they're really similar. It had the same great wear, the same great coverage, the same sort of like nice smooth matte finish. Honestly, I think it is a really good foundation. I like it. I'm glad that I have it. The shade of this is 02 Naked Ivory. I'm pretty sure the shade I had in the original way. I think I have it still, actually. So this is the original one. This is probably like about 4 years old. I really should just get rid of it. And the thing is, I would just replace it with this anyway. This one was in 03 True Ivory. And I remember I always had to put white mixer with this because it would always oxidize. Whereas this one, I feel like this one is one of those awkward colours where like I could just about get away with it, but I feel like something in the undertone was like a little bit off. So sometimes I would put a bit of white mixer in, sometimes I wouldn't. I guess it would just sort of depend on like what powders and stuff I was using. So the colour isn't like a perfect match or anything. Sometimes I would need a bit of white mixer. They do have one shade lighter than this, I believe, but I'm pretty sure it's like quite like a pink cool toned one. Yeah, I feel like at this point I might as well just get rid of this one because it's so old and just replace it with this. Again, I feel like I don't really notice much difference. I just feel like it's the same foundation. And also I always really liked the original one and I still really like this new one, so for me, it's a pretty good foundation. The only thing, like literally the only downside is it's not the most lightweight. I feel like it's the sort of foundation you'd want to wear if you were like going like out for a night, if you're going clubbing, if you're going somewhere where you needed your foundation on all day, then I feel like it's a perfect foundation for that. But maybe if you're going for like a more sort of understated makeup look and you only need it for like a few hours or whatever, then maybe this wouldn't be the one you'd want, but I like it. It's bloody good. Okay, so I'll talk about the Huda Beauty one next. I wrote in my notes, smooth, matte, great coverage, not too heavy, colour match perfect, do have to use quite a lot of product, wear wasn't as good as I hoped, but not terrible. Yeah, one thing with this is that I do feel like you have to use quite a lot of pumps to get like a good coating on your face. But once you do, it has got really good coverage. It is pretty much full coverage with building. The shade I have is Angel Food 11N, and I feel like this is like a really good shade match, which is quite impressive because I generally, when it comes to colour matches, it always kind of ends up either being too light for me or like too orangey on me. I find it hard to just get that perfect match, and honestly, Angel Food was really good for me, so that's great. I love the finish of it. I mean, I saw a lot of reviews of this that didn't like it because they said it was like too heavy and too cakey, but for me personally, I don't feel like it is heavy or cakey. Like, for example, when I compare it to like the Juvia's Place one and even the Maybelline one to an extent, I feel like this one is way more lightweight than those, but it still gives like the same really good coverage. You do just probably need to build this one a little bit more than the other two. Really smoothing, it's really matte looking. Like, I really like this foundation. In fact, I go as far to say I actually love how this looks on the skin. It looks really nice. The only thing is, I just felt like the wear let me down with this. It didn't wear as well as I wanted it to. I will start that wear test now. So I've had the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Luminous Matte Full Coverage Foundation on. I've had this on for 6.5 hours. Ideally, I would like to do like a longer wear test, but my life is just a chaotic mess right now. I'm just doing like way too many hours at work. Everything's all over the place, and also I can't do wear tests at work now because masks have become compulsory again, so I'm wearing a mask all day at work, and it's really just not an ideal situation for doing a foundation wear test, so I can't really do them at work, so I'm going to have to do them on my days off. I still feel like 6.5 hours is like a decent amount of time to kind of analyse it, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I feel like, looking at the foundation, I feel like I kind of expected it to wear a little bit better than it has. I think that overall it has held up well. I'm getting some oiliness like around my nose, but other than that I wouldn't really say there's a lot of oiliness on my skin, just like a tiny bit around my nose. I did look at it like about an hour ago, and what I did notice is that I was kind of getting quite textured, and like there's a little bit of breakage on my chin. I don't feel like it looks the best on the chin. I am going to be using the same like powder with all of these foundations, so if I notice that a similar thing is happening with like the other foundations, then I don't know, then it's like possible that maybe it's the powder, but I don't think so. But yeah, I don't feel like the chin has held up the best. The forehead I feel like has actually held up pretty well actually. Like a little bit of texture. It's settled into like those squinty lines between my brows a little bit, but not too much. These parts of my face look fine. I feel like I do look a little bit just kind of like textured, a little bit bumpy, more so than I did at the start of the day. I feel like overall this has worn like good, but I wouldn't say it's worn great, just kind of based on like my chin mainly. Like the chin is just looking like really bumpy, and yeah, I can just see the product like sort of breaking down and looking quite speckly. Yeah, I wouldn't say that this is the best long wearing foundation, but I wouldn't say that it wears like really badly either, but I feel like I have found foundations that wear like considerably better than this one, but at the same time, like I'm not looking at my face and thinking like that it looks horrible or anything. So overall I'd say like good wear but not great wear with this one, which I was a little bit disappointed just because I like everything else about this foundation, so I was really hoping that I would like the wear as well. But I mean, I do like the wear, I just, when I compare it to a lot of other foundations I've tried, I don't think it quite is up there with the best. But yeah, it's okay. It doesn't look too bad. But the chin, I think this is chin really that's getting to me here. Yeah, that's the only thing that really let me down with this, which is frustrating, because I was like, I kind of wanted to include this as like a yearly favourite, but because it didn't wear as well as I wanted it to, I'm sort of like, should I include it? Because even though I like everything else about it, I do feel like to me a foundation wearing well is quite important. Going out on a day trip, or if I'm going out to the pub or to a nightclub or something like that, I want it to stay on my face. Like, that's important to me. And like the wear isn't like awful, like it wasn't like a complete mess or anything, but it could have worn better. When I compare it to the Maybelline one, it just doesn't compare to that really, because that just wears incredible. This just wears kind of averagely. Yeah, the finish of this, the way this looks on the skin, the coverage, fantastic, love it, can't praise it anymore. It's just the wear, unfortunately, disappointed me, but I absolutely still will keep it in my collection, and I would wear it on days where like I don't need my makeup to last longer, or if I'm just like at home or something and I'm just playing around with makeup, then yeah, I'd absolutely use it. It's just, if I want to, like, if I need a foundation to last me a day, this just isn't going to be the one that I reach for. But it's still a pretty stunning foundation though. I do like it, I just wish it wore better. And obviously that's just my skin anyway. It might wear really well on other skin types. My skin is sort of, I would describe it as sort of like combination kind of skin. It can get a little bit oily, but it's not like massively oily. It's sort of normal to oily is how I would describe my skin. Okay, so the last foundation is the Rude Cosmetics foundation. My notes, I wrote, very average looking, meh. I literally wrote the word meh. Coverage is good, but least coverage out of all of them. Not good oil control, finish is more oily. Yeah, I definitely feel that this has a bit more of an oily consistency. Saying that, it doesn't look like super duper dewy on the skin or anything like that, but I feel like there is noticeable oil with it. The other foundations are definitely more matte compared to this one, and personally I do prefer a more matte finish. I don't mind like a little bit of oil, a little bit of hydration, but I generally prefer a matte finish. This also doesn't control your oil very well. You will see in the wear test. Let's just go ahead and insert that now. Next wear test is for the Rude Cosmetics Double Trouble Foundation Plus Concealer. Now, I accidentally have done this wear test for like a bit over 8 hours instead of 7 because I just got a little bit carried away. It's actually Christmas Day when I'm filming this, and, you know, activities in the household and whatnot. So I had it on a tiny bit longer than the first two, so sorry if that's a little bit unfair. But it's been on a decent amount of time on my face, so let's have a look at it. The first thing that I immediately notice is oil. Like, I do feel like I'm looking quite oily and quite shiny, more so than with any of the other ones we've tested. Like, there's oil on my chin, there's oil around my nose, there's oil on my forehead, there's oil like pretty much everywhere except the sides of my face. Those bits are looking fine. Being oily isn't like a massive deal to me, but I don't love it, I don't hate it. Like, I like a little bit of oil because sometimes I feel like that makes your skin look a little bit more natural. But then when it gets to the point where it's like quite oily, then I'm a bit like, not so much. And I feel like this is kind of on the quite oily sort of borderline, you know. So if we're to look at the forehead, I feel like obviously I'm noticing shine. I am noticing a little bit of texture, a tiny bit of breakage. And it has settled in these little squinty lines between my eyebrows quite a bit. It doesn't look amazing, it doesn't look bad either. As I said, these bits of my face look perfectly fine. The chin hasn't really broken down too badly, it does just look quite oily. There's a little bit of texture. I wouldn't say it's broken down too badly. Like, I feel like overall the breakage is fairly minimal. It's just looking a bit textured and a bit oily, and that's the thing. I feel like once I get oil on my face, that's when I kind of notice the texture on my face more, so that all kind of coincides with each other. I would say I like this more than the Huda one, but not as much as the Juvia's one or the Maybelline one. I feel like it's like third place when it comes to wear. It's really not awful, but I can imagine if you have oily skin that this probably would cause you some problems. And obviously I use the exact same like powders as I've used with the other ones, so that makes me think it is the foundation mainly that is creating the oil situation here, because I didn't get this much oil with the first three. Overall, it hasn't broken down too badly, so I will give it some credit for that. Just maybe like a few tiny areas where it has. And overall, like, it doesn't look bad. It's just looking oily and a bit textured. That's really it. So I would say it's a decent wearing foundation, but if you have got oily skin, then it probably isn't going to wear well on you. The finish of it is just sort of meh to me. Like, I don't look at it and think, oh, that looks horrible, but I don't look at it and think, oh yes, look how smooth and flawless my skin looks. It just looks sort of okay. That is literally how I would describe it. I just put it on, it's okay. Coverage is decent. As I said, not as good as the other three, but like, it's good coverage. Like, it's buildable, like, it will cover, and whatever it doesn't cover will cover with concealer anyway. So like, the coverage is good, but not the best ever. Also, the shade of this is super orangey. I always have to use white mixer with it. It's the lightest shade, which is ivory, and like, the shade selection is just pretty damn awful with Rude Cosmetics. So yeah, it's so orangey. Like, I couldn't use it on its own without white mixer. It just would not look right for my skin tone. I probably will declutter it, just because of the wear and because of the fact that it's so orangey, and it's just, it doesn't stand out to me as a great foundation. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong, but I just can't see myself reaching for this a lot, so I probably wouldn't recommend it, but at the same time, it's not the worst thing I've ever put on my face. It's a standard average foundation. Moving on to concealer, we actually had some pretty good concealers these 2 months. we've got the Ordinary High Coverage Concealer. I've got the Rimmel London Multitasker Concealer. I've got the Juvia's Place, don't know what it's called because all the writing's faded off. The Juvia's Place Concealer. The Rude Cosmetics Sculpting Concealer. Again, the writing is fading off these things. And I did also get this Collection Lasting Perfection Stretch Concealer plus Eyeshadow Primer, but I didn't really use this as a concealer. I did more so use it as an eyeshadow primer, which it works really well for because this is thick and high coverage, so it probably blanks out your eyes, but it has got a really oily consistency, so I don't like it as a face concealer. But as an eye primer, it works really good. And the thing is, if you do like a more oily concealer, if you're into like that dewy finish, then you probably would like this as an actual face concealer. But for me, it only really works as an eye primer, but it's a pretty good eye primer. So I'll talk about my least favourite one first, which is definitely the Rude Cosmetics one. The shade is quite a good brightening shade. I think it's the lightest shade. Oh, no, it's on here. It's the shade Light. That's literally what it's called, Light. Yeah, it's a good brightening shade. I wish the doe foot was a bit bigger, but it's not too bad. There's nothing really wrong with the formula of it. It's like quite like hydrating. It's not dry at all. But it's just not enough coverage for me. I love a full coverage concealer, and this just doesn't have the best coverage. Covers a little bit, don't get me wrong, but it's just, compared to the other ones I've got, it's just not very good coverage, so I don't think I'd reach for it a lot, and I probably would declutter it. The shade is a pretty good shade for like pale skin though, for like brightening under the eyes, so I will say that. And if you like a more lower coverage, lightweight concealer, then sure, but for me, this just isn't what I'm personally into. I'll talk about the Rimmel one next. So I think this is in the shade Porcelain, I want to say. This definitely had a better shade selection than the other Rimmel concealers I've seen in the past. I can't remember quite how extensive it was, but it was definitely more options. This one's got a massive doe foot. It is really similar to like the L'Oreal Infallible one. I feel like they sort of copied that a bit, but then L'Oreal copied everybody else, so yeah, really like the packaging, love the massive doe foot. This shade is more of an under eye brightening shade. I could probably actually get the shade below this to use with blemishes, which I probably would in the future because I actually really like this. I would buy it again. It has really good coverage, full coverage concealer. Formula is great, like a more matte finish but not super drying. It still has a little bit of hydration in it. Yeah, I really like this, honestly. I can't really fault it. It has full coverage and that's what I want. Obviously the only thing is that this shade is more of a brightening shade, so I can't really use it over blemishes. I would have to get like a shade below, I think, but for under the eyes it works fantastically. Honestly, I've got nothing to complain about. I would definitely recommend this. It's also Rimmel, so it's super affordable. If you've got Rimmel where you live, definitely give this a go. This is a really good full coverage concealer. I love it. Love it. Probably going to be included in a favourites, which, to be fair, I'm filming my favourites after this video, but I'm probably uploading it before this video, so sorry if that's confusing. Next, I'll talk about the Juvia's Place one. So this is in the shade 23. I don't know if it had a name as well, can't remember. But the thing is, I tended to use a lot of the time when I was using these products, I'd use the Rimmel one under my eyes, and then I'd use this one for blemishes, because I feel like this is like a good sort of like colour match for me, where like it matches, well, it just matches my skin well, but obviously it's not really like a brightening shade or anything, so I would tend to use this one more in like blemishes. I could use it under the eyes as well if I didn't want a super bright under eye that day. Worked fantastically in blemishes. This one also is pretty much full coverage. Really good formula. I say this one's probably slightly more hydrating, not by much though. I still think it's a relatively matte concealer. Yeah, I was really impressed with this. It's really good. If I was ordering from Juvia's Place again, I'd definitely pick up another one. I think there might have been one shade above this, so I'd probably pick that one up as well to see if that would work more as an under eye brightener, and then this one for like blemishes. I feel like that would be perfect. But yeah, 100% would recommend this. Really like it. I definitely like the concealer more than I liked their Juvia's Place foundation. Definitely think the concealer is the better out of the two. I think it's just because that foundation has like such a kind of moussey texture, whereas this is just like a regular kind of standard concealer, you know, sort of formula. So really great, would recommend it, definitely. Lastly, the Ordinary concealer. I have used this one today. It has got really good coverage. It is like a squeezy tube one, and I definitely prefer like a doe foot sort of situation. Like the squeezy tube thing isn't my favourite sort of formula. This one is definitely less matte than the other two concealers. It's a little bit oilier, but it's not like super duper oily at the same time. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't say it's like a matte finish or anything, but it has got pretty high coverage. Not quite as much as the Rimmel and the Juvia's Place, but it has got really strong coverage. I definitely use this up, that's for sure. The shade is also pretty good. What is the shade? I don't know. Where are you written? Oh, this actually has an expiration date on it. That's pretty cool. This expires February 2022, so next month. Wonderful. That's actually not a very long date, is it? Because I brought this in, like, what, August? I brought this in, like, August or September. So it only really lasts, like, not that long, actually. I don't know what the shade is, because it's not written on here. I think it was the lightest shade. I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, it will all be linked below anyway. I like this, but I'm not sure if I'd buy it again, just because I don't love the sort of, like, application style. I much prefer a doe foot, and I generally just prefer something a little bit more matte. But it is a perfectly decent concealer. It has got really good coverage. The shade works well, and I would definitely like finish it up, absolutely. And it's also super duper affordable, which is great because The Ordinary, I think it's like £4 or something. Super duper affordable. Okay, setting powders. Got quite a lot here. I've got the I Heart Revolution Radiance powder, Collection Lasting Perfection Sheer Loose powder. This is the translucent one. I got the Juvia's Place I Am Magic setting powder in the shade White Sands. Rude Cosmetics Studio Finishing Mineral powder. I did also get this magic, what's it called? Puff the Magic powder from Rude Cosmetics, but I literally never used this because I couldn't figure out how to use it. Like, I don't understand the packaging. Like, I just... nothing came out. I didn't get it, so I can't say anything about this because I could never get it to work. It was the Revolution HD Super Matte Setting Powder, Re-Evolution, I don't know how you say it still. I got pressed powder from Rude Cosmetics, which is a Stop the Pressed powder. It's all gone now, literally empty. Used it up in like a few weeks. Also Urban Decay Stay Naked powder foundation, also pretty much used this up. Again, didn't last very long. There's a few little crumbles going on here that are kind of not really usable. I'd also buy another collection pressed powder, but again, like, not a lot left. See, pressed powders, I just fly through them. Loose powders tend to last me a while, but pressed powders, like, they're gone. Like, they just never last long. God, where do I start here? I'm just going to start with this Rude one because I didn't use this a lot because I literally didn't like it the first time I used it. It was patchy. It oxidized. None of my, like, cheap products showed up well on top of it. This is just kind of, like, it does everything I don't like what a powder does. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend this. Kind of wish I hadn't brought it. I'm going to move on from that one quickly because I've got nothing nice to say about it. I'll talk about this one. So this is, well, it's the Revolution, which someone told me how to pronounce the brand in one of my comments and I can't even remember what it says. It's the Re-Evolution with the love in it spelled backwards. It's a really cheap back to basics brand that Makeup Revolution has come out with. Yeah, this is that HD Super Matte Setting Powder. I believe it just comes in the one translucent shade. And it's like a sort of off-white kind of pink toned shade. I have actually used it today and yeah, I still look super ghostly. In terms of the formula, I actually like think it's a good powder. Like, it literally does everything that you want a powder to do. Like, it looks fairly smooth, there's no weird separation. And even though it's a translucent shade, I do have a lot of problems where, like, translucent loose powders make my highlighter not show up, but my highlighter shows up perfectly fine on top of this one, so that's great. Considering it's super cheap, I actually think this is a really good powder. But the only thing is, though, because it is that sort of, like, white shade, it's not going to be universal. It's going to make people look ghostly. It's not going to work on all skin tones, and even on me, like, I still think it makes me look, like, too pale. And I am pale, and it makes me look too pale. So yeah, I think I could do with, like, adding some, like, more shades to this, like a banana shade and some darker shades. I think that would be good, because I actually think the formula of this is really nice. Like, it's quite smoothing, it doesn't, like, separate, it doesn't do anything weird, highlighter still shows up over it. Like, it's a good powder, actually, considering it's super cheap. It's just, it's going to make you look a bit ghostly, and it's probably going to have flashback. In fact, should I test that now, because I have used it today to set my face. That is the most unflattering picture I have ever taken. Yeah, it doesn't look great in the flash. Thoughts on this are, it is a good affordable powder, but the shade isn't going to work on everyone. I feel kind of similar way about this collection one. This one actually does have a few other shades of it though. Not a lot, they still could have more, don't get me wrong. But yeah, this is the Lasting Perfection Sheer Loose powder, and it's the transparent shade. and it is literally like a white colour. I have actually pretty much, God, I've almost used it all up. This is the one that I actually used on all of my wear tests for the foundations. I feel kind of like this, the same way I do about this, and that, like, considering it's so, like, cheap, it does a good job. Like, it sets your face down really well, it looks fairly smooth, like, it does a pretty good job considering how affordable it is. And again, like I said, highlighter still shows up on this one as well. But again, it does have that sort of thing where it just makes you look a bit white. I found with this one, once you've kind of left it for a little while, it does sort of start to, like, go back to whatever shade foundation you had on underneath it. So this one, like, after a while, that sort of, like, initial kind of white cast will kind of fade away. So, like, I don't know, like, maybe it could be universal. I couldn't say because I've only used it on my skin tone. Honestly, it's a decent powder, but yeah, there are other shades of it as well. Like, I think there are, like, a couple darker shades of it, though, I think, as well. So, like, I would say that this is, like, a pretty good powder considering, like, how affordable it is. Like, I would recommend it. It's good, but I can't say that it's going to work on all skin tones, that's all. So the Juvia's Place one I'll talk about next. So this one is in White Sands, and this one's actually got, like, a colour tint to it. It's not, like, a translucent one. But I was, like, worried, is this going to be too dark? But actually, I feel like it matches my skin perfectly. Like, I'm not going to get, like, a super bright under eye or anything with it, but it does just, like, match my face. And, like, I feel like I prefer it when powders have, like, a bit of, like a skin tint to them. This is definitely a really good powder. I really like it. It is so small, though. I really wish you got more product with it because it has, like, a super flawless, super smoothing finish. I love the shade. Honestly, like, I really like it. And again, if I was on Juvia's Place's website again, I probably would buy it again because I think it does a really good job. I just wish you had more product in it because it's so tiny and you just go through it so fast. I mean, I still have got some left, saying that. The shade of it is, like, really pale. I would say it's got a little bit more of, like, a warmer undertone to it. So I can't say it's going to work on, like, every person with pale skin, but for me, I found like it matched me pretty well. Yeah, this is a really lovely powder, actually. I really like it. The I Heart Revolution Radiance powder. Again, this is another one of those powders where it's sort of like an off-white colour, and again, like, it will make you look a little bit ghostly, like with the Collection one and the Revolution one. It's not going to be a universal shade in my opinion. But this one I like. I think it does a really nice job. Again, it looks smooth, but it has got that radiance in it, but without it being, like, too much. You just kind of see this sort of, like, kind of subtle shimmer in it, and it works well, but it still, like, sets your face down really well at the same time. I use this quite a lot, and honestly, I really liked it. I liked that it had that radiance without it just, like, being like a disco ball or anything like that, but it still, like, mattified your skin down at the same time. Again, I feel like the shade is probably more of the sort of shade I'd use under the eyes as opposed to all over the face, but honestly, it's a good powder, but again, I don't think it's going to be a universal shade. So going on to the pressed powders, so the Rude Cosmetics one, Stop the Pressed Powder, shade was Porcelain, shade worked really well. Honestly, I just literally just disappeared in, like, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks. I just went through it so fast. It was, like, a decent powder, though. There wasn't anything wrong with it. Like, it looked fairly smooth. It mattified my face well. The shade worked good. Like, it was a good powder, but, like, it just did not last long until, like, it was gone so fast. And yeah, it's all gone. But, like, it was a good powder when I used it. It just didn't last me long, so. But it was quite cheap, so, you know. It wouldn't cost loads of money to keep buying it, but at the same time, like, I feel like this is probably one of the quickest amounts of times I've gone through a pressed powder. But, like, it was a good formula, but just didn't last very long. The Collection one, like, I've tried these powders, like, a lot. Like, I've tried them for years. I don't know if they've changed the formula, but the packaging was slightly different. And this shade, which is Ivory, I feel like it looks darker than it used to look. It's still super pale, don't get me wrong. The shade works absolutely fine. But I seem to remember it being, like, almost like an off-white colour before in the past. So I definitely feel like they've darkened it. And what's weird is that I feel like they've taken shades away from this as opposed to expanding the shade range. I'm pretty sure there's only 3 shades of it, whereas in the past I swear they had more than that. They didn't have loads before, don't get me wrong, but there was definitely more before. So, like, why would you rebrand something and then take shades off it? Like, usually they do the opposite. They add more shades. I don't understand that. But yeah, I think this is like $1.99 still, and it's super cheap, and it's a really good powder, but, like, 3 shades is not ideal. Like, that's not enough shades. And the Urban Decay one, so the Urban Decay Stay Naked The Fix Powder Foundation, I liked it when I first used it. It's one of those foundations where you can really see it, like, adding coverage to your base. Like, it definitely adds coverage. It looks super smooth, super flawless, super mattifying. Like, it does everything right. Again, I don't feel like this lasted long. I feel like I flew through it. And also, there'd be a few times where, like, instead of wearing foundation, I'd use, like, concealer sort of all over my face because, like, I wanted a more, like, lighter base and, like, I was in a rush, I think. And I thought, oh, well, I'll use concealer and then I'll use this because, obviously, it's, like, a higher coverage powder. But I found that every time I used it with just concealer, like, it just would not wear well. Like, it would start to, like, go crumbly and, like, disintegrate on my face. Like, it just didn't hold up very well. But, like, it held up okay when I would use it over foundation, just not when I would use it on, like a concealer sort of base, which is a bit weird. I wouldn't rebuy it just because I went through it so fast in probably like under a month and it's expensive. Like, if this was cheaper, then yeah, I would rebuy it, but it's an expensive product. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good, but again, like, I feel like if you were just using this on its own, I don't feel like it would be I feel like if you were just using this on its own without like foundation, I don't feel like it would work the best, because like I said, like, I felt like it kind of just crumbled and disintegrated on the face when used by its own or with like minimal product under it. So I don't know. I don't feel like it would work good as just like an actual like foundation by itself, personally. The shade was also really good. It's 10NN. Yeah, it was super pale, worked for pale skin really well. I loved that it had coverage, but honestly it's just too expensive, went through it too fast. And also doesn't necessarily wear the best, but then it kind of depends what you've got underneath when it comes to that. Yeah, I just wouldn't buy it again because it's too expensive, and for the amount of time that I had with it, it's just not really worth it. There is also this powder, which is sort of like a cross between a powder and a highlight. It's from Physicians Formula. It's their Rose All Day Set and Glow. So I wouldn't use this as like a setting powder. Like, I would not use this to set my makeup down. It's way too shimmery for that. It also has this weird balm thing. I don't use it, I don't get it, but no. Yeah, this is what the powder looks like. I have hit pan on it already, I've used it a lot. This is more of a finishing powder, so it's the sort of thing that you would use after you've set your face down, and then just sort of like dust it all over to give your skin a more sort of like glowy finish. Works absolutely perfectly for that. The shade is really good for pale skin. It comes in 2 other shades as well. I think a more pinky one and a more bronzy one, so there are some other shade options. Yeah, it just gives your skin like a nice bit of glow, but it's really subtle. It's not like super intensely pigmented, but that's kind of what you want it to be. I wouldn't use it as a highlighter. I would just use it literally, like I said, as a finishing powder to just dust all over your face, and then just give your skin a beautiful radiant finish. I think it does a fantastic job at that, absolutely. I am starting to get through it though. I don't feel like it's going to last me too much longer, but I have used it a lot though, to be fair to it, so it's not too bad. Okay, so we're going to move on to cheek products now. I'll start with bronzers and contour. Oh my god, there's just so much here. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, right, let's just talk about bronzers first. So a Juvia's Place bronzed, is that just what it's called, bronzed? Bronzer palette in the shade Light. It's like a double one. I've got that one. I've got the Rude Cosmetics Go for the Bronze. This is in, I gave it to my all, and it's like kind of broken. It's still got like a decent amount in it, but I feel like every time I open it, it gets worse. There was this other face palette that I got from Rude Cosmetics as well. This is their My Other Half Polar Opposite powder in the shade. No, the shade is My Other Half. It's the Duo Shade face palette in the shade My Other Half Polar Opposite, which has sort of like a blush and then a kind of contoury sort of shade in it. I did also get one of these collection Gorgeous Glow bronzing brick things. It came all shattered, and I did manage to mush it together with my fingers, but it seems to have re-separated itself, so I am just going to throw this away. It obviously didn't remain a whole for very long. It just sort of re-crumbled, which was a bit weird. Like, it was one I managed to mush it together with my fingers, like it worked okay. Like, it was fine. It's like a bronzer with a bit of glow, but it's got loads of different shades in it, which, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of that. I kind of just like it when a bronzer just is one shade as opposed to, like, lots of different shades mixed together, because, like, it sort of worked for my skin tone, it sort of didn't at the same time. It was a bit, but it's broken. I'm going to throw this away because, like, I can't use it anymore. I tried mushing it back together, and it obviously worked for a little while, and then it just re-crumbled. Don't know how, but it just re-crumbled. I literally didn't do anything to it. It just sat in my drawers, became crumble again. And then there was also this face palette from Revolution, the Trio Contour palette in the shade Sugar. I'll talk about the Juvia's Place one first. I'll definitely get quite a lot of product in it, like the pans are quite big. I feel like with this, I mostly just use this shade. This shade works really good for my pale skin tone. I like that it's got that more sort of like neutral kind of undertone to it, so it doesn't pull like super orangey or anything, or like super red or anything like that. It's just like a really neutral sort of brown colour, which works really good for pale skin. I feel like it really complements my skin tone. I don't use this shade as much. I can sort of just about get away with this shade. It is a bit more like caramelly. I can just about get away with it, but personally this shade is just the one that I go for, and the formula is really nice. It's subtle, it's buildable, it blends out lovely. It's like the perfect formula really. So yeah, I really like this bronzer. I feel like if they sold these as singles, I would just buy that one and probably not bother with this. I do feel like this is slightly wasted. Like, will I tap into it occasionally? Yes, but I'm more so using this shade, so in a way it's like a little bit of a waste that it has the two shades, but it is a very high quality product. I really like it. The Rude Cosmetics bronzer. Now, I didn't expect to like this, and I will just say that it wasn't broken when I first got it. This just sort of happened over time. I think it was just me being clumsy with it. Yeah, when I saw the shade, I was like, that's going to be too dark for me, surely, but something about it just translates onto the face beautifully. Like, it's a really good pale skin shade once it's on the face, even though it doesn't look like it's going to be in the pan. I really like it. Again, it's that same sort of subtle, buildable formula. It blends out really nicely. The pigment is just the right amount. And somehow the shade works. Like, it's like again, it's more slightly yellowy. It's a good undertone. It's not too red or too orangey or anything like that. Works good for pale skin, surprisingly. I think they only had like 4 shades of this maybe, and I think the other shades are more glowy, whereas this one is like a fully matte bronzer, so I have no idea what the other shades would be like. And I don't know if like there's a problem with the packaging, if they're just fragile, or if this is just me, so I don't know. I think it's probably just me, but honestly I would recommend this bronzer to people with pale skin. It's really affordable as well, and it does a really good job actually. I think it's a good bronzer. I talk about this little face palette from Revolution. I don't know how to say the brand name still. So when I got this, I was a bit like, I don't know, like, is this bronzer shade going to work for me? And I have actually used this bronzer shade today. I feel like it doesn't look like it's going to work for me, but then again, it's like with the Rude Cosmetics one, it actually does translate better onto the face. It isn't the perfect shade, but it works well. Like, I've used it today and I feel like it looks fine. It has a really good sort of like chiseling effect. I feel like some bronzers you put on because you want like a bit more like warmth, a bit of a glow, whereas this one I feel like it's more of that sort of like chiseling, defining kind of bronzer formula. Obviously, because it is a matte one. Like, it actually works well. Like, I just feel like this whole palette's actually like quite good. The highlighter is actually really nice. It shows up pretty well. And I really like the colour of this blush. It's sort of like kind of corally tone and with a little bit of shimmer in it. The blush works really well. I definitely think I would keep this palette in my collection. I do think it actually works pretty good, especially considering how cheap it is. I think if you've got pale skin and you're worried about the bronzer shade, I'd say give it a go, because I do actually think it does translate better on the face than it looks like it's gonna in the pan. And honestly, the blush is lovely. The highlight, it's not the best highlight ever, don't get me wrong. There are more pigmented ones out there, but like, it's a nice highlighter. It'd be good for travel as well because it's small, but you've got your bronzer, your blush and your highlight. You've got your whole cheek combination in there, so it'd be good for traveling. It's not bad. Like, it's not my favourite thing ever, but it's not bad. I'd definitely keep it and use it. So this little duo from Rude Cosmetics, I mainly got this because of this shade here, which I thought, oh, that looks so cool toned and like it would be a really good contour shade. And it does work as a contour shade. Like, I've used it today to contour my nose, but I think the issue with this, and this goes for both shades, is that it's just a bit too pigmented and it requires quite a lot of blending. It's a lot of work, I feel, and I feel like I have contour shades that they just blend out a lot more, they're less pigmented. I feel like it's just a lot of work. Like, the shade does work as a contour shade for me, but it's just a lot of work to kind of get it blended the way I like it. And the same with the blush. Like, I like the colour. It's like a nice, like, sort of bright orange, and I have used it today. But again, it's just quite pigmented. And again, you can get it to work. Like, it will blend out. It's just a bit more work than other blushes that I have. Honestly, I don't know if I would keep this, just because I feel like I have blushes that I like more, and I don't have loads of contour shades, don't get me wrong, but I do have some that I like more than this one. So yeah, it's okay, but meh. Obviously we've already talked about a few blushes, but there were a couple other single ones that I used as well. So there was the Collection Soft Glow Blusher. This is in the shade For Trouble. I brought this in my One Brand collection video. It's quite like a sort of mauvey, kind of cooler toned, rosy blusher. Really like this. I think it's lovely. It's so subtle and so natural. It's got a tiny bit of glow in it. I think this is a super good affordable blusher. I really like it. It's not like super intense. It's not going to be for people that want a really prominent, defined blush look. But if you're wanting like a natural blush, which I personally like natural blush, then I think you'd really like this. It's really nice, and I love the colour of it as well. I just love cool toned blushes. And it was like, what, $2.99 or something like that? Can't really go wrong. I do also have these two blushes from Colourpop. Basically, my friend made an order on Colourpop, and she asked me if I wanted anything. I didn't actually ask for these, but she got them, and she didn't really think they were going to work for her skin tone, so she was like, do you want them? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give them a go, why not? So these are from the Animal Crossing collection. They're the pressed powder blushes, and I've got the shade Flower Tender and Flower Power. So Flower Power looks like this, and Flower Tender, this one's a bit more corally, a bit more orangey, peachy. This one is a bit more, this one's slightly cooler in tone, I would say. They're both nice shades, I like both of them. Like, they're good blushes. They are quite pigmented. Again, like, they do need a bit more blending than, say, like the collection one, for example. But it doesn't take that much time. They're nice little blushes, actually. I like them. I definitely keep them. Definitely use them. I've really not got much to complain about. They've also got, like, a clip. They've also both got, like, a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of glow in them as well. They're nice little blushes. They're probably not going to become all-time favourite blushes for me, but they're nice blushes. So highlighters, as I said, there was the one in this Revolution palette, which is, it's not the most blinding, intense highlighter in the world, but it's pretty decent. It's not too bad. I've also got another Colourpop one. This one I actually did ask her to get me. This is the Super Shock Cheek. Is that what it's called? It's one of those like creamy highlighters that Colourpop does. In the shade Stole the Show. It's like a sort of icy gold sort of colour. I've also got a Juvia's Place highlighter. This one is the Tribe highlighter. This is the volume 3 shade, which looks like this. Hit pan in it. There was the Collection Gorgeous Glow highlighter. The Re-Evolution Super highlighter. That one's in the shade Shine. I got an I Heart Revolution Heartbreaker highlighter. This one is the golden shade. And also another Revolution product. This is the Revolution Glow Splenda Ultra Glow highlighter in Luster, which looks like this. Right, I'm going to start with my favourite one first, I think. My favourite is definitely, I feel like this one is kind of miles ahead of the other ones. This is so pigmented, it's so intense, it looks metallic, it looks sort of shiny, sparkly, glittery. It looks literally everything you would want a highlighter to look like. I was worried, like, I did think the shade might be a bit too dark for me, but actually it translates beautifully on the face. It works really well. The pigment is just, oh, it's just so nice, so metallic. I love it. It sort of comes out like a kind of silvery colour, I'd say, on like a natural silver, not like a sort of like outlandish. The pigment is blinding, it's beautiful, it looks stunning, it looks ethereal, it just, I love it, love it, love it. I've hit pan on it, as you can see, because it's a really nice eyeliner. I really like it. Definitely would recommend it. I think they have 2 other shades, 2 deeper shades, but this shade definitely does work for pale skin if you are worried about it. I feel like it worked really well. I don't feel like I get any like harsh stripe or anything. I feel like it just meshes into my skin tone really nicely. I guess I'll talk about the Colourpop one. I wasn't sure what this was going to be like. I was actually quite surprised about how creamy it is. Like, it's like a sort of cream powder hybrid kind of thing. It feels so nice. Like, it's just so soft. It's really pleasant to apply. It just feels so soft. Because it has got that sort of creamy kind of texture, I would find that if you put this in areas where you have like sort of kind of lines, for example, like if I put it on my cupid's bow or my chin, I felt like it sort of really kind of settles into those lines because it is more of that creamy texture, so I wouldn't use it in those areas. The only place I'd really apply it is kind of the cheekbone, and it would look really nice. Like, it does have quite nice pigmentation, the colour works great, and the texture does feel pleasant to apply. I do feel like it works best just applied with a finger. It has got nice pigmentation, but it's just like areas where you've got fine lines, it's not going to work very well. It will just sort of settle into them. That is just something to bear in mind. But it's a nice little highlighter to pop on the cheekbones. I'll talk about the Heartbreaker one because this is the one that I have on today. This one is probably the deeper shade out of all of these. It does still work for my skin tone. I feel like I need to top it up a bit. Like, you can definitely see the gold in it, but it doesn't look like harsh. Like, I still feel like I can get away with the shade. It is a really pretty highlighter. The pigment is quite nice. It's not super duper blinding or anything. It's not like the Juvia's Place one. It's not on that level. It's quite like it's more of a natural highlight, but it does still show up. I like the colour. I think it's a nice highlighter. Probably not going to be the best for like textured skin. It's a nice highlighter. I like it. Is it going to become an all-time favourite for me? No, probably not. This collection one, I didn't really like the collection one very much. I just felt like this doesn't do an awful lot. First of all, when you look at it, it looks like it's more matte than it does shimmery, which is not really what you want from a highlighter. The shade works fine, but again, it's just way too natural for me. I just don't feel like it does an awful lot. And I do feel like there are other highlighters that are super cheap and affordable that just have more pigmentation to them. So I just wouldn't bother with these. I mean, I needed one for my one brand collection video, but honestly, I'm probably going to declutter this. I don't think I'd use it a lot because I just want a little bit more from a highlight. I just think it's way too subtle and it's just not got very good pigmentation. I kind of feel a similar way about this one. Like, I felt like this was a bit disappointing. So this is the Revolution Glow Splenda Ultra Glow Highlighter. Like, you get it, you got this massive pan, it looks stunning, but it's quite hard pressed into the pan. Like, I feel like you almost have to scrape it a bit to sort of get a decent amount of colour payoff. And don't get me wrong, like, it does give you something. And I like the shade as well. It's sort of like a kind of pearly, slightly pink, but still very pale shade. Like, it gives you something, don't get me wrong. Like, it's definitely more than the collection one. But it's just, I don't know, it's just really hard pressed into the pan, so you don't get that, like, amazing blinding pigmentation from it, which is a little bit disappointing. I just feel like their Revolution do much better highlighters than this one. It's totally usable though. You definitely can still notice it on the skin. It's not that bad, but I don't know, I just feel like there are better formula highlighters from a similar price range. The Re-Evolution one, again, I feel a similar sort of way. It has got nice pigmentation. It's got okay pigmentation, but it's not the most blinding. And again, this one is also quite hard pressed, I feel. I feel like this one is more pigmented than the Revolution Glow one though. Only slightly though. This one is more of like a golder tone to it. Again, the shade works absolutely fine. This one is quite nice, but it's not the most intense highlighter out there. It's not the best for textured skin. It's okay. Honestly, out of all these highlighters, the one that I like the most is just hands down the Juvia's Place one. That's the one out of all of them that I would want to buy again. And I feel like the rest of them are just sort of like, they're okay, like they're good highlighters, but none of them are like particularly amazing. Okay, so we're going to talk about eyebrows now. I'm starting with brow gels. So I've got the LA Girl Brow Bestie Long Wearing Gel, dark brown. I've got the Huda Beauty Blowout Eyebrow Gel, which is the 04 shade. I've got the Wet n Wild Brow Obsessive Brow Shaping Gel in the shade brown. And I've also got the Revlon Color Stay Brow Filler Fiber. Brow fiber filler even, in medium brown. The one I've used today is the Huda Beauty one. I feel like this for me was a little bit disappointing because, first of all, it's very expensive. Huda Beauty is quite an expensive brand, but I liked the look of it, so I thought I'd give it a go. But I feel like the colour is good, it's quite ashy. I just feel like it has a lot of excess, like this is from when I was using it earlier today, like it does have a lot of excess product on it. And it's quite pigmented. Like, it's not as bad as other brow gels, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like it's a bit more work than I would have expected for something that's so expensive. Like, I wouldn't buy it again, that's for sure. I just wish it was a bit more natural. But saying that, I've used it today and my brows have turned out alright. You definitely can get a good brow with it, it's just a bit more work than you'd probably perhaps want it to be. I know I just have other brow gels that I think just come out more natural, don't have as much excess product, and are cheaper as well. So, like, I would definitely finish this. I'd definitely finish this. I'd definitely use it up. But I wouldn't rebuy it. It's just, first of all, it's just too expensive. And there are better ones that are cheaper. So this LA Girl one, like, this is just pigment to the next level, really. Again, there's so much excess. The colour is a little bit intense as well because it is more of this sort of dark brown. It's a little bit intense for something a little bit more ashy. The wand looks like it's going to be good, but again, it just picks up so much product. There's just so much excess. No, this is just far too intense for me. I just really like natural brow gels, and I just feel like this is just too much product, too much pigment. I find it difficult to get like a natural looking brow with this. So that's the thing, this Huda Beauty one is definitely a lot better than this one. This is way too much. So this one I can actually work with it, whereas this one is just difficult to get a nice brow with. The opposite problem with this Wet n Wild one, where it kind of got to the point where I was like, is this actually doing anything? Is this a bit too natural? But I do feel like if you do have that problem with this, just sort of scrape it around the sides a bit, and then it will start to pick up more product. I just feel like sometimes it doesn't always pick up the product very well, but if you just scrape at the sides, it does. So this is like a super duper natural brow gels. It's one of the most natural eyebrow gels I've tried. You know what, I actually quite like it, and this is super cheap as well. I think it's like £3 or £4. I do feel like I have brow gels that I like more, that are that same sort of natural thing, but give me a little bit more than this one does. I feel like sometimes this borders on like too natural, to the point where it's like, are you actually doing anything? Also, I do feel like the shade is maybe a teensy bit too light for me. I do feel like it doesn't have a good shade range anyway. I think that's like a translucent one, and then this brown shade, and that's it, which obviously is not ideal. It's not my favourite ever, but considering how cheap it is, and like, considering how cheap it is, it's actually pretty good. Like, I like it, and again, I will definitely use this up 100%. I just kind of wish it did a slightly more. This Revlon one, I sort of have mixed thoughts on this. First of all, it has the weirdest wand I've ever seen, because, well, it basically has two wands on one. It's got like this sort of longer bit here, and then obviously the end here, and it's just weird because I feel like it's difficult to get like a good application with it, because you've got these two wands together and they keep like overlapping with each other, and it's just difficult to get a good application. Like, it can end up a mess basically when you're using it. The product itself isn't too bad. Like, it doesn't have as much excess as like the Uoma one or the LA Girl one. It's got less excess, but I just find the wand makes it a bit difficult to apply, really. They should have just had one wand. I feel like if it was just this one, it wouldn't be too bad. Or just the long one. Like, they should have just committed to one wand instead of two. I just don't really understand it. The shade works okay. Could be a bit more cooler toned, but it works okay. I can get away with it. It's not the worst thing, but I don't love it. Okay, I did try a few brow pencils as well. So there was a Rude Cosmetics Teeny Weeny Micro Eyebrow Pencil, which is this little one here. That was in the shade Neutral Brown. I also tried the Beauty Bay Brow Pencil. This is just called their eyebrow pencil. In the shade Bark. What's this one here? I feel like they're really similar. There was also this Blade Brow from Revolution, but I ran out of this ages ago. It did snap a few times when I was using it, and I don't know if it's just because like it was poorly designed or if it's just because I was being an idiot. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I ran out of this quite a while ago. There was also this Incredibrow from Collection, but I only really used this as a brow pencil like once. Honestly, I think this works better as like a brown eyeliner than it does as a brow pencil, because it's just so thick. It's just too thick as a brow pencil. You can't really get any precision with it. But it's a good brown liner. Like, it's a good thing to sort of smudge on the lash line. It works quite well because it's got decent pigmentation and it's blendable. So yeah, like, it's a brown eyeliner, but as a brow pencil, I don't think it really works for that. But it's a perfectly decent brown eyeliner. Yeah, going back to this Blade Brow, it's weird because so this was like a micro brow pencil, but it was like a bit more of like a sort of rectangular kind of shape. I mean, I guess you can kind of see from this bit here. Can you focus? Come on. Honestly, I don't think I can keep my hand still enough for that to focus, but it's more like a rectangle kind of shape as opposed to just like a kind of cylindry shape. It worked okay, like it was like a decent brow pencil, but it didn't last me very long. And it did snap a few times. Again, I don't know if that's me or if that's just like the product being poorly designed or whatever. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It worked okay though. Like, it was a fine brow pencil. Probably wouldn't buy it again, just because it might be a bit flimsy and not the best thing I've ever tried. Not bad. Didn't last very long. I'd say my favourite out of all of these would definitely be the Beauty Bay one. I really like this. The shade's really good colour. It's like an ashy brown colour. It's super soft. super natural looking. It just basically does everything I want a brow pencil to do. Yeah, like it, would buy again. I like it. I think this would probably be one of my favourites I've tried this year. It's really good. The Rude Cosmetics one is also pretty decent, but I do feel like this Beauty Bay one just tops it slightly. This one, the Beauty Bay one's just slightly more softer, slightly more natural looking, but this is still pretty good at the same time. Like, I feel like, again, the colour works quite well. It's a similar sort of like ashy, kind of medium brown colour. It's just a little bit stiffer compared to like that Beauty Bay one. It's just a little bit more stiffer, but it's fairly natural looking. It's like not too intensely pigmented or anything. It does a good job, but I probably wouldn't rebuy this one, but I would rebuy the Beauty Bay one, I think. Like, I feel like they're both pretty good, like, natural micro brow pencils for, like, sort of precision. I've got quite a lot of eyeliners here. Where do we even start with this? Let's just go through all of them. There was 2 LA Girl Shockwave neon eyeliners. I've got yellow and a blue one. Both of these perfectly fine, decent pigmentation, very creamy. I like them. Obviously, they're very kind of niche colours. They would only work for certain looks, but they do show up in the waterline quite well. I got like this green one from Rude Cosmetics, but I'm not going to lie to you, I think I only tried it once or twice. I don't actually really remember much about it. Well, actually, what I do remember about it is that it's like not the creamiest formula. Like it's not the creamiest formula. It feels a little bit harsh to apply. But it has got good pigmentation and it does show up well. It's just a little bit of work. I did also get a coloured liner from Juvia's Place. This is the Nubian Eyeliner in the shade Royal, which is a sort of electric blue colour. Really use this. I think I used this in like my Halloween video. It's super pigmented, super creamy. It works really well. It works in the waterline, works on the lash line. You can blend it quite well. Again, if I was ordering from Juvia's Place, I probably would pick up the other shades, but I don't think there is a lot of shades. I think there's like a black or brown. I think there's like another blue shade, if I remember correctly. So hopefully they add more colours to these because they're actually really good eyeliners. I got a whole bunch of the NYX, what are you called, Epic Wear liner stick. So I got a few colourful ones, and I also got a white one and a black one. One of these is very pigmented, very long wearing. I have got the black one in my waterline today. This is a really good black kohl liner. Like, it's super creamy. I've not had any issues sharpening with it. It glides on really nicely and it lasts really well. Like, I've had this on for like about 3 or 4 hours already and it doesn't really look like it's faded much at all. Out of all the black eyeliners that I tried these 2 months, this one is definitely the longest wearing. Probably the most intensely pigmented as well. I do just generally quite like these. I just got like a random bunch of shades. Like, I got some turquoise, blue, purple, a white one. They're all like really good pigmentation. Got nothing to complain about. I think these are good eyeliners. I like these I like these NYX Epic Wear things. So I'll talk about like the other black kohl liners that I tried. So there was the Rude Cosmetics I Have a Secret Creamy Gel Eyeliner, the Inglot Kohl Pencil 01, and also from Collection I've got one of their Eye Definer Lasting Colour in the shade Black. I do have a few notes here. So the Inglot one, I've wrote that it's got decent pigmentation, but it's definitely not the most pigmented eyeliner I've ever tried. Honestly, considering Inglot is quite a pricey brand, I feel like this wasn't the best kohl eyeliner that I've used. And I also didn't feel like it lasted the best either. Like, there was definitely quite a bit of fading by the end of the day. Quite a bit of inner corner smudging. Again, like, I just feel like, considering like Inglot's a bougie brand, I expected like this to be better than it was. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but meh. Rude Cosmetics one, it's also got good pigmentation, glides on very nicely. It doesn't last as well as the NYX one. It lasts reasonably well. There's definitely a bit of fading, but it's not too bad. Like, you can definitely still see it in the waterline after a decent amount of hours with it on. So it does last reasonably well. I only just noticed that it has a smudgy bit on the end. How have I only just noticed that? I should use that. Well, I definitely think I would keep this one anyway. I should definitely use that smudgy bit more. It's not a bad black eyeliner. Yeah, this is not a bad black eyeliner, but again, it's just not as good as the NYX one in my opinion. And the Collection one, I feel like I've tried this in the past and liked it, but using it this time, again, I feel like there are more pigmented eyeliners, more long-wearing eyeliners out there. It's just, the pigment's good but not great, and it just doesn't really wear very well. Like it fades quite a lot by the end of the day. It gets to the point where you can't really see it there. Honestly, out of all the black eyeliners that I tried, the NYX Epic Wear ones are definitely the best. And I'd say the Rude Cosmetics one isn't too bad either. Like, that's pretty good. I'd probably keep that one, but I feel like the collection one and the Inglot one, I'd probably declutter. I don't think they weren't bad, but I just think the other ones were better. I also tried this liquid liner from Collection, which again, I feel like I've probably tried this years ago. It's the Extreme 24-Hour Felt Tip Liner. The pigment's okay, but it's just way too chunky for me. I much prefer something a lot more thinner, a lot more slimmer. I just find it hard to get an intricate wing, but it has got pretty good pigmentation. Like, it's workable. I just prefer something with a much thinner nib, personally. Moving on to mascaras, there were 3 mascaras I tried. Well, one of them was this one, which I'd tried like probably 4 times because it's one of my favourites. Like, it was just another repurchase, and it's kind of dried out now. This is done. This is over. This needs to go away. It's the Collection Last Surge False Effect Mascara. Love this mascara. I've said it many times on my channel. 100% would recommend this. So much volume, so dramatic, and it's like $4.99. Yeah, obviously I used it to death when I got it, so it's all gone now. It's all dried up. It's looking really crusty and nasty, and it just needs to go away. But yeah, I would 100% keep rebuying this. It's a really, really good drugstore mascara. Can't recommend it enough. So we've also got these 2. So we've got the Re-Evolution Long Lash Lengthening Mascara, this one here, and also a Rude Cosmetics one. This is their Look at Them Curves mascara, and I have got both of these on today. I've got the Revolution one on this eye and the Rude Cosmetics one on this eye. And I feel kind of similar about both of these. When I first used them, I don't feel like they impressed me that much, especially the Revolution one. I felt like a bit disappointed with this. But I do feel like this has gotten better the more I've used it. I don't know if it's like the product drying up. I don't know if it's like it's coating the wand better. I honestly don't know what it is, but this happens a lot with mascaras. They just tend to like improve like more you use them. I definitely feel like that's the case with both of these, but definitely with the Revolution one. But I feel like if you look at that, like that's giving me a decent lash. Not my favourite lash ever. It does still get a little bit like sort of clumpy, but like it does a decent job. But so I'm just saying, so if you get this and you don't feel like it's really doing much at first, it does start to get better the more you use it. I still wouldn't buy it again. It still isn't a favourite mascara. There's still mascaras that I think are so much better, like the Collection one I just mentioned. But it did improve, so I'll give it that. It has improved with time. And yeah, like as you can see, like it's given it a good lash. It is just a little bit clumpy in places, I would say. But it is, I think it was only like £3 or something, so honestly, like it's not bad. But again, it's just not a favourite for me. And the Rude Cosmetics one, which I have on this side, again, I feel like they both look pretty similar. And again, I do feel like this one does get a few problems with like clumping and like lashes kind of sticking together. But as you can see, it's given like a little bit of volume, a decent amount of like drama. But is it the best mascara ever? No. Again, there are ones I prefer, but also this one did improve with time, and it does an okay job. If you look at my lashes, like they're decent lashes, but I can just sort of see a bit of clumpiness, and there are just ones that impress me more. So these are both like okay, like affordable mascaras, but there are better ones out there, is what I would say. Okay, so now on to eyeshadow. There were a lot of eyeshadow palettes. I forgot to mention this earlier because I had it mixed in with all my eyeshadow palettes because of like the size of it. But I also tried the Belgian Waffle from BH Cosmetics, which is, it's got bronzers and highlighters in it. I like the bronzers in this, but honestly, I feel like all 3 of these highlighters don't really work very well for my skin tone. Like every time I use them, like they'd always give me like a really harsh stripe, which is weird because I feel like when you look at them, they look like they're going to work for pale skin. But as soon as they go on my face, there's just this really harsh stripe, which is a shame because they have a nice texture and they have got nice pigmentation, but they just don't really work for like pale skin in my opinion. Which is also weird because they then have this bronzer up here, which is like the most like pale bronzer like I've ever seen. It's super pale to the point where sometimes I'm like, is this even showing up? Like, this might be a bit too pale. But when it comes to that, I tend to just kind of mix both of these shades together. Actually, no. I tend to mix this shade in with the shade at the end. and I feel like that works really well. Like, I feel like the bronzers are good bronzers, and this is a really good shade if you've got super pale skin. But honestly, like, it makes me confused as to who this palette is for, because I feel like all the highlighters would probably be more for like a medium tan skin tone, because they do have a bit of a harsh stripe to them on like pale skin. Whereas I feel like these bronzers are meant for like a more light to fair complexion, so I don't really understand who this is targeted at. I find that a bit confusing. I like the bronzers in this. The highlighters are good formula-wise, but they just don't really work for my skin tone. That's what I think about that, really. Okay, so back to eyeshadow. There was quite a lot of palettes. So we've got the Makeup Obsession Tiffany x Illuminati Kaleidoscopic Dreams palette, which looks like this. The Sample Beauty, the Equalizer Volume 2 palette. So grubby. Everything is so grubby. And it looks like this. Juvia's Place, the Warrior 2 palette, which is this all matte neutral palette. Looks like this. Also from Juvia's Place, we've got the Taupes palette, which looks like this. Rude Cosmetics, the Roaring 20s Reckless palette, which looks like this. I also got this little triangle thing that I got for free from my Rude Cosmetics order. This is the 70s palette, Electric Fantasy. Just this little triangle with these shades in it. Then also there was the Collection Sahara Dunes eye palette, which is just this little neutral one here. We're going to talk about these in order of size. I'm going to start with the small ones. I'll talk about this little collection one first. First look I did was in my One Brand Collection video, which was literally just a bog standard neutral look. Nothing really much to complain about. What other looks did I get? Did I get other looks with this? The only other look I did with this, I have got a picture of. I did wear this on a night out. I mean, like, it's a perfectly fine eyeshadow look. The shimmers look quite nice. I did do like a sort of black smoky look with this like last week, but I forgot to take a picture of it. Oops. I feel like I probably played around with this palette the least out of all of them, because there's really not that much you can do with it. I mean, you've got 8 shades, you've got these 4 shimmers on the top, and then you've got these mattes at the bottom. And my main issue with this is that I feel like the matte black and then the shade next to it, which is like a brown colour, they're so similar to each other. Like, you can't get like sort of like depth with your eyeshadow because they're just so similar to each other. They just like kind of turn into the same colour. Really, this shade should have been like more in between those two, like the black and the lighter brown, really. That would have made more sense to me. Like, I just feel like you can't get a lot of like depth with your eyeshadow with this palette because of the colour selection. I mean, the quality of the shades is like decent. It's not the most pigmented shades, but they do show up. You can get a look with them, as you can see from like the video I did, that one picture I took. Shimmers are okay. They're not the most pigmented shimmers I've ever seen. It's a decent palette considering it's like £4 or something. But like, honestly, I feel like they could have chosen the colour story a bit better, and the quality is good but not great. But then for the price, it's kind of like, I feel like it's good for the price, to be fair. So we'll talk about this Rude triangle. So yeah, like I said, I got this for free. I didn't actually pick it out. And I probably wouldn't pick it out because I feel like the colour scheme is just weird and all over the place. You've got like these like interesting shimmers, and then you've got like sort of like reddy tone shades, but then you've got like a green matte, and then this really bright yellow. It's just a bit of a weird colour selection, really. I did manage to get a few looks with it though. Okay, so this first look, I did some weird like graphic yellow liner. I don't even ask me. I literally just used so I used like the goldy shimmers. I used like the goldy and like the darker shimmers in this, and then I just used some of those like reddy shades with the crease. Yeah, this look is wild. Don't know what's going on here. To be fair though, I feel like the quality of this palette is good. Like, the mattes are really good and pigmented, and they blend well, and the shimmers they're very chunky shimmers. Like, I think you can see just from the mess that I've made that they're chunky shimmers, but they are pigmented. They do show up nicely. They are very pigmented shimmers. They're just a little bit messy, a little bit chunky, but like, honestly, the quality of this is pretty good. But again, it's just such a weird colour scheme. Another look, I tried to use that green shade, and then I think I just used some of the golds, and I think I used like the lighter brown transition-y shade here. This is just a weird look, because I feel like that's all you can do with this. It's just either something super duper neutral or just something weird, which is kind of what I did with this sort of greeny gold look. I mean, it looks okay, to be fair. And again, like, all the shades performed well. Like, there's nothing to complain about with the quality. It's just like, it's difficult to get cohesive looks with it. And then the last look I've got here, I tried to just, I tried to just do something as neutral as possible with like the sort of red warmer shades in the crease. Then obviously I used like the white shimmer and the, I can't remember, one of the other goldy shimmers. And again, like, it looks okay, like it's not a bad neutral look. Like it's fine, but I can't fault the quality of this. Like, it is a good quality palette, but it's just the colour story is just weird to me, and like, I don't know. I don't love the colour story, but the quality is really good. But I don't know whether to keep it or not, because I don't feel like, again, I just don't know if this is something I'm going to reach for a lot. So I'll talk about the Taupes by Juvia's Place. This palette, I feel like, was the one that disappointed me the most, to be honest. Like, I was really looking forward to this, because I do love cool tones. I do love cool tones, particularly cool tone eyeshadow, and I saw the shimmers, and I feel like I was like, oh, those shimmers look really nice, but honestly, I was just disappointed with this. I feel like the shimmers don't show up as nicely as they could. They're quite hard pressed into the pan, and the mattes are quite faint looking. They're not the most pigmented. Honestly, this palette is just really subtle and not pigmented, which, I don't know, maybe that's the vibe they were going for, but that's just not a bit of me. So I only really have this one look I took pictures of, because again, like, there's not really a lot you can do with this palette, but again, it's just, I feel like the pigment is just, you have to build it up so much, and honestly, this look is just meh to me, really. Like, don't get me wrong, you can get the shimmers to show up with building, but they're just a lot of work, I feel, and honestly, this is just a bit of a disappointing palette for me. All the other eyeshadows I've tried from Juvia's Place I've really liked, including the one I'm literally about to mention next, but this one I just, no. Speaking of which, this one, which by contrast, this is really good, so this is the Warrior 2 by Juvia's, this is an all matte palette, and it's just like all your kind of neutral shades that you need. You got your matte black, your matte white, and basically everything that transitions between those. I feel like this is just sort of like a staple palette, and that's kind of why I wanted to pick it up. And this is just miles better quality than this Taupes one. Like, all of these mattes are super pigmented. They all blend perfectly nicely. Really good quality if you're just looking for something. If you're just looking for some neutral matte shades, then I feel like this is a fantastic palette to get. Obviously, the pan sizes are massive as well, so it's going to last you like forever. And I feel like these shades would kind of complement a lot of different skin tones as well. Again, I think there was only really one look that I got with this palette, because obviously it's some neutral palette, and I feel like this is the sort of thing that you would use in combination with another palette or some other like single eyeshadows, because obviously it's all mattes. I did get two looks though. So there was this one, which is literally just like a bunch of neutral mattes on my eyes, with a bit of a cut crease. I mean, as you can see, like, the pigment's great, everything shows up super well. That's the most basic eyeshadow look I've probably ever done. Then I obviously tested out the more deeper end of the spectrum with the matte shades. I did think I put a little bit of a shimmer from another palette over the top of the black, just to give it a bit of something extra. But otherwise, I just used the matte shades from this palette, and you can definitely get that super duper smoky look as well. Like, the blacks and the darker brown shades show up super well, and also blend super well. So yeah, honestly, great quality. Can't really say anything bad about it, other than you probably would need to use some like other things with this palette, unless you just want an all matte look, which, to be fair, you might want. But for me, this is the sort of thing I would use in conjunction with another palette with shimmers in. So yeah, I've tried like 4 Juvia's Place palettes now altogether, and honestly, 3 out of 4 of them were fantastic quality. It was literally just this Taupes one that for some reason just didn't work for me. It just did not have the pigment that I wanted it to. But I do think Juvia's Place does really fantastic eyeshadows. That was just one flop. I mean, it happens. Like, brands can't be... It happens, like, with most brands. There's usually one product that doesn't work, at least. Okay, I think I'll talk about this Rude Cosmetics one next, the Roaring Twenties Reckless. I had no idea what to expect with this, but I adore this. I think it's fantastic. I really like it. Again, I went for this colour scheme. I went for this colour story because it's kind of just not like anything that I have before. Obviously, you've got a nice balance of mattes and shimmers. It's pretty equal. Maybe slightly more shimmers, actually. But it's a pretty equal balance with just tiny few more shimmers. The first look I was in my first impressions video, obviously, where I went for like a green look, and honestly, and that's probably one of the favourite looks I actually did with it. Like, the matte greens worked. The matte greens worked great. They blended into each other fantastically. And then also the shimmers. So there was this one down here and this like mossy coloured one here. So stunning, so pigmented, like, just amazing. So the next look I did, I went for this blue and purple look, and the blue shimmer, absolutely stunning. Purple mattes worked great. I actually do really like this look. I don't really know what was going on with the eyeliner here. But yeah, the blue shimmer, this one here, Razzle, stunning. I mean, look at that. That's just beautiful, isn't it? Like, I just feel like the shimmers in this palette are they're just something else. They're really nice. Next, we've got a more sort of kind of neutral, pinky look. I used a lot of the sort of pinker toned mattes. And obviously, I think I used this sort of champagne-y shimmer up here. And then I must have used one of the pink ones. God knows, I don't remember. This was so long ago now. But yeah, I think this look turned out pretty good. I mean, it's fairly neutral, really. But yeah, everything performed pretty well. Yeah, that's all of the looks that I've got to show, but I really like this palette. It's fantastic quality. It makes me kind of want to try more from Rude Cosmetics, really, because even with that, like, triangle palette, I just cannot fault the quality. Like, everything was so pigmented, blendable. I love this. I definitely feel like there's probably a few more different looks I could get with this. Yeah, if this colour story appeals to you, I'd definitely give it a go. I think they do have another of these, like, Roaring 20s palettes in the same sort of packaging, but they have, like, a different colour version of this. Which, to be fair, I did actually quite like the look of the other one too, so maybe in the future I'd pick that one up as well. But yeah, I mean, Rude Cosmetics has bloody tons of eyeshadow, so if any of them are similar to this, then yeah, absolutely, would try them. Okay, so next I will talk about the Sample Beauty Equalizer Volume 2 palette, which is this one here, which has a really similar colour story to one of those Morphe palettes. I think it's the 35M one. I do have it. I feel like really similar colour story with these sort of like quite predominantly purple with sort of neutrals in there as well, and some more sort of yellowy olivey tones as well. I really enjoyed this palette. I thought it was really good. So much so that I brought another Sample Beauty, which was in one of my recent first impressions videos. Okay, so the first look was obviously in my first impressions video, and I believe I went for like a more the classic purple look that you would expect someone to do with this palette, and everything performed very nicely. The second look that I did, I went for something more warm-toned, more fiery. I think this looks stunning. The sort of orangey red tones showed up beautifully in the crease. The shimmers in this palette are interesting because they do have a little bit of that sort of mushy texture, which in the past I haven't really liked that much. And I think the issue that I have with it is I do feel like sometimes when you use it over a cut crease, for example, like it tends to sort of separate a bit. And I do feel like that did happen with some of the more mushy textured shades in this palette. But again, it's only really the sort of thing that you're going to notice if you're proper up close to your eyes. And I do feel like if you're not using it over like a cut crease, it won't look quite as bad. That is just like a kind of minor kind of issue I have with the shimmers. However, they are still all super pigmented. It's just that kind of mushy texture can sometimes make your like eyeshadow separate a little bit. That is something to note. That's the thing, like in some of these pictures, if you look really close, you probably can see like a little bit of a sort of kind of line going through the crease, through the eyeshadow. But at the same time, I still think it looks like a nice look. Next look, we've gone for some of the kind of yellowy mattes in the crease, and then a sort of kind of goldy, bronzy, shimmery situation going on. Fairly understated look, but again, those yellowy mattes show up really well. The shimmers show up really well. Nothing crazy, but it's a decent look. Okay, next, okay, this look I find a bit... Honestly, this look I don't think is my finest work. I was trying to do some stuff with some cake liners, and honestly it just looked really like scruffy and messy. But if you focus on like the eyeshadow part more, I obviously wanted to do something kind of like the Halloween colours with the orange and like the black. And honestly, I feel like if you took away the graphic liner, this would probably look quite nice actually, but I just ruined it with my... I just ruined it with my really badly drawn spider web, and the orange eyeliner has like cracked quite a lot. So just pretend those parts aren't on there, and the orangey mattes really pigmented, really nice. Yeah, and like the matte blacks, like it's really like the matte black and the matte white in this palette are really good. Okay, next look I got, I actually really like this look. It is obviously really simple, it's nothing crazy, it's just literally the epitome of like a neutral look. But I really like it. It's just a really nice like look. It's just, I like this look. I would totally do this look again and like wear it out somewhere. It's just a really beautiful, like, sort of subtle, understated, like, glam. Soft glam, that's the word I'm looking for. Soft glam. That's what this look is. Again, all the shades performed amazingly. Then I think this is the last look I got, but I went for like a sort of gold, black and gold kind of look. Again, some of the yellowy shades for the crease, as well as the matte black for the crease. And then I obviously went for, I think it was this brunch shade. It was one of these two gold shades. I sort of used mostly all of that all over the lid. And I like this look. It's not my favourite look, but it's okay. I think it does the job, you know, and obviously all of the shades worked really good. I'm pretty sure that's the last look that I got with this palette. But honestly, I really like the quality. The mattes are amazing. The shimmers are beautifully pigmented, but bear in mind what I said about like that sort of creamy texture that they have, where if you're using them over a cut crease, they do have the tendency to sort of settle into the lines. It will have the tendency to sort of settle on the lines, like the folds in your eyes. That does happen. But I do think this is a really good quality palette, and they're not ridiculously expensive. I think they're about £20, and they do go on sale sometimes. And considering you get so many shades, and it's just like it's a massive palette. Honestly, I think they're really good. And I obviously tried another sample beauty palette recently, the Blooming one. And honestly, I found that the quality is really similar. So yeah, I really like this brand for eyeshadow. Last eyeshadow palette, which is actually the one that I have on my eyes. Today we went for something quite neutral, this sort of bold, this sort of white shimmery cut crease, and then just some sort of warm shades going for the crease. So this is the Kaleidoscopic Dreams Tiffany x Illuminati palette from Makeup Obsession, which you've basically got the whole rainbow in here, as well as like some neutral shades as well. I feel like you've literally got everything you could possibly want in this palette. Again, another palette that I really adored. I thought it was fantastic. Let's go through the looks I got with this. So obviously my first impressions, I believe I did a blue and silver look, and I really liked how that turned out. All of the blue mattes worked really well, and this shimmer, which is probably one of my favourite shades in the palette, this one here called Fleeky. This is so pigmented and so nice. I have actually used it a little bit today on my eyes. Absolutely stunning pigmentation there. Okay, so the next look again is another situation where I was trying to do some graphic liner and it's really badly applied, so please ignore how badly applied that is. But I used obviously some yellows for the crease and some purpley mattes as well. And which shades did I use? I'm pretty sure I must have used this one here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I used this one here, and I think this one here, the two big ones. Now, I do find that these, more shimmers that are in like the bigger pans, they have a strange sort of texture. They're quite like glittery, and again, I feel like they do sometimes kind of separate a little bit on the eyes. Like for example, I used the shade Opalite today, which is this one here, and I do feel like sometimes it does have the tendency to sort of settle in the lines on your eyes. So yeah, similar to that sample beauty thing, I do feel like some of the shimmers in this palette can separate a bit, but I do feel like all of them are pretty pigmented. I don't know, that look is just kind of all over the place, not gonna lie. This next look though, I think is a lot better. We've obviously got some gold and pink stuff going on here. So yeah, all of the mattes, literally all of the like rainbow mattes in this palette show up amazingly. They're super pigmented, super blendable. And then I also used this gold shade, which as you can see from the pictures, it looked absolutely stunning. Oh, just look at it, it's so nice. Yeah, I actually really like that look. I think it looks pretty cool. Next look I did this sort of green purpley thing, sort of kind of like Joker colours. I kind of like it. It's an interesting look. All the green mattes worked great. Again, it's the same thing with the shimmers, where they do look a little bit kind of separated in areas, but they have got really good pigmentation. But yeah, if you look closely in some of the pictures, you can see it just sort of separate into like my eye folds quite a bit. Next look, we've got this super red toned, coppery sort of look. I love it. I think it looks super nice. I'm pretty sure I used this shimmer called Henry in that look, and this shimmer is so nice as well. Look at that, that's amazing. That's the thing, I feel like the shimmers that aren't in like the big pans, they work fine. Like I don't have any issues with separation with those. It's just the ones that are in like the big pans that have that sort of kind of grainy almost texture where they tend to just separate, whereas the ones that are just sort of in the smaller pans, don't have that issue with, and they're super pigmented. Okay, and then there was this look that I did recently, and I'm kind of the opinion that I like and dislike this look at the same time. I obviously just wanted to do something with full-blown rainbow, and obviously we've done the whole graphic liner thing. I feel like I've applied this graphic liner better than with the other looks that I've shown you in this video, that's for sure. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. It could be better, don't get me wrong, but as you can see, all of those rainbow mattes that I've put on the lid have shown up amazingly pigmentedly, and they all actually did blend into each other pretty well. So yeah, I can't really fault the rainbow mattes. It's done a good job. This look is just, yeah, I sort of like it and hate it at the same time. And then obviously we've got the look that I've done today, which is just a fairly neutral glam look. And that's all the looks that I got with this palette. So again, I really enjoy this palette. The mattes are really good quality. This matte black in particular I think is really good. Some of the shimmers are better than others. Like I said, the ones that are in the smaller pans I feel like are the highlights. Whereas the bigger panned ones, they do have a bit more of a sort of grainy texture, and they can just sort of, they come out a bit weird, that's what I'll say. Like, they do have good pigmentation, but they just come out a little bit weird on the eyes. That's all I'd say about that. I feel like that's the only thing, that's the only sort of questionable thing about this palette, really. Otherwise, I do think it is a really good quality palette, and I really enjoyed using it. Okay, moving on to lips. I did try one lip liner from Juvia's Place. This is their Luxe Liner Sweet Nothing. It's a brown shade. Actually I like this more than the lipsticks that I tried, not gonna lie. It's just a brown nude shade. It's really matte but creamy at the same time. Honestly, like, I would just use this as a lipstick really, because it just has like the best formula. I like this, it's really good. Also get an actual proper lipstick from Juvia's Place, but like I said, I prefer the lip liner to the lipstick. This is, I don't know what this is called because it's not actually written on here. Or is it? No, it's not. But the shade is Muted. It's one of their matte lipsticks. I do really like the shade. The shade is totally up my street. I just found the formula of this was like, it just wasn't matte enough for me. It was just too shiny for what I personally like. I mean, if you want a more hydrating lipstick, then that's great. But for me, I just want something a little bit more matte. This is just not really matte enough for me. But the shade is really nice, and it has got good pigmentation. And I tried 2 lipsticks from Rude Cosmetics. Again, it's not written on here, but these were their matte lipsticks that come in this packaging. I got it in 2 shades. I got a nude shade, which is this one, Reckless, which I believe is the one that I have on today. I quite like this colour. Then I also got this like vampy dark sort of plum shade, which is Shrewd. These have good pigmentation, but same problem with the Juvia's Place one, they're just really not matte enough. Like, they just, like, I feel like I haven't had this on that long and it's already just like, it's going. Yeah, they just don't really have the longevity. I just wish they were more matte. But if you do want a more creamy, hydrating formula, then they're absolutely fine. They've got good pigmentation, but for me, I just want something more matte. So the lip products were a bit meh for me. However, the Juvia's Place lip liner used as a lipstick actually I did quite like. So at least there was one good lip product. Oh, just to mention, I also did try the Juvia's Place Eye Prep Eye Prime Eye Primer. And I think this is pretty good too. Like, it does blank out your eyes. It's very creamy. It's good coverage, and eyeshadow blends on top of it really nice. The only thing is with this, you do need to keep shaking it before you use it because it gets quite watery. So just bear that in mind. But it is a good eye primer. And I did also try one setting spray from Rude Cosmetics, which is the Radiant Lasting Mist. This isn't the best setting spray. Like, I feel like there are setting sprays that I feel like do more than this one does. I kind of want to put some on though. The mister is fine. It adds a bit more moisture to your skin, makes your highlight pop a little bit more. Does it transform your makeup? No. And I think I used this in all of my wear tests. So, I mean, and I had like an array of different experiences with the wear, which makes me think maybe it probably doesn't affect the wear at all. So, yeah, I don't really feel like it probably does much for wear. A little bit of radiance, but nothing major. I feel like I've had setting sprays that have added more, sort of like dew. It's okay, I probably wouldn't buy it again, it's just meh. Is that it? Please tell me that's it, because I really want to start talking. And I've just got my booster jab. I got my booster jab earlier today, and literally I feel like my arm has only just started hurting now. And this was literally about like 4 hours ago now that I got this. I have been filming for 2 hours. Been talking to this camera for 2 hours with a sore throat. I need to go, because my dad's making pizza, and I want pizza. I don't want to talk to this camera anymore. Okay, I'm so happy that this video is filmed. That is all my thoughts on all of those products. So there will be one more updated makeup review, which will be my November-December updated makeup review, and that will probably be out in like February or March. And then that will be it for updated makeup reviews, because I will be on a no-buy for all of 2022. 2022? Yeah, not buying any makeup this year. So, only one more updated makeup review from the stuff that I tried at the end of last year. I keep thinking it's still last year. So yes, I hope that gave you a little bit more insight into my opinions, and as you can imagine, I really want to just not talk about any of this makeup anymore and move on to my next batch. That's what I want. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.